Good morning, everyone. It's really lovely to be here. This is my second time here. I think I was here a couple of years back, so I recognise a few faces. So it's really nice. It's such a lovely, warm, welcoming church, and I really like that. The charity that we set up, Kintsugi Hope, its strapline is to create safe and supportive spaces for those that are struggling with mental and emotional health. And I've always sort of felt like when I thought about this building that that's what you're doing, right? You're creating a safe and supportive space for the community and for each other. So thank you so much. And like I said, I've known Kevin for years and recently got to know Colette as well, doing amazing work with Hackney Quest. So it's brilliant to be here. Are you okay? Yeah. You are looking very serious, I have to say that. Anyone, just turn to the person beside you and say, you look absolutely fantastic this morning. Great. Well, I don't know about you, but I've come to the conclusion that you can't plan life. Has anyone else come to that sort of conclusion? This is the way I wanted my life to work out, and this is the reality. I also have 4 children, and I've worked out that I can't plan how to control my children. It was interesting. I was in America a couple of years ago, and I had my kids there, and I was sitting around this table having coffee with some very well-known church leaders from across the world, and we're having a deep conversation about theology. And then my son Daniel, who must have been about 4 at the time, walked in and went, "I've got an announcement to make." Not, "Please, Dad, can I say something?" That would have been quite nice at that point. And then everyone was just really quiet, and they're looking at him. And he goes like this, he goes, "God is in my heart." And then all the other leaders look at me and go, "Wow." And I must admit, there was a moment where I'm like, well, it's all those Bible stories I read every night. And then he went, "Along with Spider-Man and Batman." And then the leader of One Man Bangladesh went, "Who's the strongest?" I'm like, "Don't know." And I could see he's really thinking about this. He went, "I'm not sure. I think Spider-Man." And I was like, you know, when you put the kids to bed and you try and read the Bible stories every night. And there I am, basically there, going, "Daniel, if they ask again, God's the strongest, right? God's always the right answer when Christians ask you anything. It's always God, right?" And he's going, "Well, Dad, God can't spin webs, can he?" And I'm like, "He can spin webs. It's God. I can't control my kids." And you know, so often in life, I feel like I need to get it all nailed down. I need to get it all sorted. I need a perfect relationship. I need a perfect job. I need my life to be a little bit more controlled. And in reality, it's really hard, right? I preach quite a lot, and it's really interesting that everywhere I've gone in the last 6 months, there's this one verse that I believe God's really speaking to the church about at the moment. And it comes out of Isaiah 43. And it says this: "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you perceive it? I'm making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland." Now, the context of this passage is that the people of God, the people of Israel, they're in captivity. They're in exile. They're in Babylon. And they've lost everything. Life has not worked out to plan. And in fact, you know the book of Lamentations, a really easy book to read in the Old Testament, that describes how they felt. They felt orphaned, they felt vulnerable, they felt fatherless, they felt absolutely desolated in this foreign land. And in that context, through the prophet Isaiah, God saying, don't dwell on the past, you need to let go of some of that stuff. I'm doing something new. And you know, the desert, the wasteland, it's quite dry, it's quite disorientating, it's a bit of a confusing place to be. Who thinks that maybe in our society at the moment we're in a slightly confusing place? Not quite sure what's going on, not quite sure who's in charge, not quite sure what the future's going to hold. That's where they were, in that place. And you know, God was saying to the prophet Isaiah, don't dwell on the past. You know, the past is important in some ways. But sometimes we can make an idol to the past. I don't know, I've often said, you know, in the good old days, this happened, we did this for God. Well, sometimes the past can be really painful for some of us. But you know what? Your past doesn't have to define your future. You can remember past events, but the past doesn't have to hold you. And in this verse it says, watch, perceive, look, I'm doing a new thing. And sometimes we have to see what God's doing, right? It's interesting, the farmers last year had to harvest the fields 2 months early because of the weather, because the weather's all changing. And what they had to do is they had to watch the fields, they had to watch the weather, they had to watch what was going on to see how they should respond. So I'm just going to share a little bit where I think what God might be saying to the church today, what God might be saying to a lot of us. I've got a coconut here, as you can see, and I'm going to give you a little lesson on how to trap a monkey, okay? So it's going to be becoming very useful in Hackney. And so basically, the way you trap a monkey is you get a coconut, you make a hole in it, you tie the coconut to a tree, you put some food in the coconut, and then the stupid monkey comes along. And he puts his hand in there to grab the food. Now, the problem is he can't get his hand back out without letting go of the food. Now, the monkey's greedy, right? He don't want to let go of the food. So it's there, it's struggling. The hunter comes along. Does the monkey let go? It don't let go. It gets captured. Stupid monkey! I wonder how many things I don't let go of that stop me doing the things that God's called me to do. I wrote this book. It's a brand new book, it's just come out last year, called Honesty Over Silence. And you can get a copy. There's other books there I've written. And because we're starting a new charity, there's a thing on the books that if you support the charity, £5 a month, you get all the books I've written free, just to say thank you. But you know, the thing about writing Honesty Over Silence was I wrote it because I've sort of been around the Christian world for a long time now, and I'm not allowed, if I'm allowed to say this, I'm just getting a little bit bored with all the hype and the politics and all the stuff that sometimes goes on, and I'm saying, you know what, I really want to find a way that we can be more authentic and more real. And I started looking at these things, so in order to do that, what are the things that we need to let go of? What do we need to let go of in order to give ourselves to something else? So the first part of the book is all about how do you let go of things. So the first thing I wrote in the book is how do you let go of the false smile, pretending everything's all right. We're told to put on a brave face, but sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to take the face off. Is that true? Yeah. Sometimes it's okay not to be okay. That God works for our brokenness. He works for a weakness. I went through a period of my life a couple of years ago where I just felt completely and utterly alone, completely broken. Life was difficult. I suffered from all sorts of physical health problems. I had major operations, cancer within my family. You know, I call it the Tetris moment. Remember the game Tetris? Everything goes wrong at once. And you think, I can't do this anymore. And suddenly it all starts forming around you. And I got so low, I was like, you get to that point, you think, God, you know, I'm not even sure I want to be here anymore. That's a lonely place to be, right? And then you start thinking that is a really, really desperate place to be. And then I came across this image. It's called kintsugi. So if you break a bowl, what I tend to do when I was a kid particularly, I meant it with super glue. And then I take it to my mum and I pretend I hadn't broken it. And she could always tell that I'd broken it. What they do in Japan is they put a gold powder in the glue. So instead of hiding the cracks, they make a feature of the cracks. Arguably, the object becomes more beautiful and more unique than it was before. You will never find a bowl like that now on planet Earth, because one size never fits all. And I started to realise that maybe a scar is a place of healing. And maybe instead of being ashamed of our scars, we should celebrate them because they're part of our story. And so that's where the inspiration for this charity I started called Kintsugi Hope. Me and my friend Hannah, some of you may know, we had a go at doing this actually. And here's a little 90-second video of us doing Kintsugi.
My youngest son, Nathaniel, was at a friend's house. There was a confrontation with a boy that turned up and decided that he'd take a knife and stab Nathaniel with it. I feel like at that time I was in a bubble and feeling alone and not even knowing how to articulate that to anyone.
I had to have major limb reconstruction surgery. Around the same time, my daughter got a condition called HSP and my dad got cancer. It was like a perfect storm of things going wrong. And I realised that the anxiety was really taking root in my life. And then you realise that actually you can't just carry on. And you need to show some self-compassion.
Bereavement is different for everyone. What's really important is that people are able to talk to someone that they can connect with. And through that is a real good healing process.
And actually maybe receiving help is letting go of your pride and saying, I am really broken. And as we share in our brokenness, we share in our common humanity.
The brokenness is my heart, and it's in pieces. But through time, it's starting to come together again.
I love that little phrase, discovering treasure in life's scars. And it was interesting actually, one of our friends, who's not a Christian yet, she's an acoustic artist, she came round to our house and goes, oh, you started up with some new charity. And she goes, I don't know if it's okay, but I bought you all these kintsugi necklaces, which we've been selling and stuff like that, just to remind people like how beautiful they are, that they can discover treasure in life's scars. It's quite hard to know what to buy someone who's going through a really tough time, isn't it? And you don't really want to buy them a sympathy card or something like that. So we got them those. And as I read the Psalms, I realised I was in really good company. Did you know that the Psalms, 40% of the Psalms are laments? 40% of the Psalms are David crying out to God. I just don't get it. A lament psalm, a bit of theology here for you, a lament psalm always has 4 different parts to it. It normally goes, you know what, I feel like I'm forgotten. The second thing is, it's not going to plan. The third thing is, I'm hurt. But then it gets to this bit right at the end often. Some of them don't even get to this bit, but most of them do. Right at the end it says, but I'm going to trust in you, no matter what. That is letting go of the false smile. That's expressing, because in the Psalms, David expresses his anger, his pain, his despair, his questions. It's raw honesty. We did this show, me and a singer-songwriter, a friend of mine, called When Faith Gets Shaken, after another book I wrote. And at the end, what we really wanted to do, instead of doing one of those things where, you know, if you've got anxiety, come forward for prayer, which is terrifying on the way, we thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we got everyone to write down on a post-it note something they feel like they've been carrying for too long. And then we got this big cross at the front, and it was really moving. Everyone, hundreds of people came forward and put a post-it note on the cross. And these are some of the things. I didn't read them every night. In fact, I didn't read them many nights. But on one night, I read them, and I was just amazed at what people carry. So these were some of the messages that people put on those post-it notes. I didn't say the right thing to my son as he was dying of leukemia. The next one says, I fear that my past will catch up with me. The next one, my husband is paralysed from the neck down following an operation. I'm a single parent, carer, advocate and wife. I'm angry that it happened despite 24-hour prayer for him. I feel dead. Still is making me so nervous. I just want to know, does God love me? The next one, Lord, I feel like I've become so distant from you. Please help me find my way back. My sister's terminally ill with cancer of the liver and the pancreas. My friend died when I took him out of the canoe and I couldn't save him. I feel like I'm drowning in my own tears. I feel lonely. I feel guilty being pregnant when my best friend and her husband lost her little girl. I feel like I am never enough. Do you know what that was? I was saying, that's like Psalms, right? That's that gut wrenching, God, this is what I'm going through. Ernest Hemingway said this, the world breaks everyone, and after many are stronger at the broken places. What do we need to let go of in order to take hold of something else? Well, I tell you what, we need to let go of the false smile. We need to start being real. And as we start being real, God starts doing something else. Another thing for me is letting go of anxiety. You know, if you know that 1 in 4 of us suffer from some sort of mental health challenge, anxiety is terrifying. Now, when I was writing this book, my perfectionism takes over. I research a lot. So I read all the theologians, I read all the psychologists, I think about storytelling, I think about how I can tell this. And when I got to the chapter on anxiety, I was like, you know what? It's not really quite doing it for me. It's all very technical and stuff. So I read loads of blogs and I came up with this list of what I think anxiety is for a lot of people. See if you can relate to any of these. Anxiety is your brain not being able to turn off. It's the unanswered text message that kills us inside. Especially WhatsApp, because you can tell they've read it, right? It believes every negative scenario that you come up with. It's the inaccurate conclusions drawn as your mind takes off and you have no choice to follow its lead. It's apologising for things that don't require you to say sorry. How many times you said to your friend, I'm really sorry? And they go, what are you saying sorry for? It's not your fault. It's self-doubt and a lack of confidence. It's trying to fix something that isn't a problem. It's the fear of failure, striving for perfection, then beating yourself up when you don't get there. It tells you you're wrong, they don't like you. It's constantly asking the what-if questions. And I got to that end of that list and I thought, yeah, that sort of sums me up quite well. But then it isn't quite the definition I was looking for. And then I came across this and I thought, that's it. More than anything else, anxiety is caring. It's never wanting to hurt someone's feelings. It's never wanting to do something wrong. More than anything, it's the want and the need to simply be accepted in life. So you try too hard sometimes. That's what I find. You know, people that suffer from anxiety, sometimes in churches they've been made to feel really guilty. They are the most lovely, sensitive, kind people. And just going up to them going, trust in God a bit more, isn't that helpful? To be honest, it's not that helpful. Actually, we need to work with each other. I like these little cartoons I've got here. How about this? Anxiety. What if nobody likes me? What if I taste weird? What if I'm too cold? What if I'm too hot? What if I'm just right and I can never live up to it again? We have some anxiety at the end, please. The pearls of overthinking. I made a mistake. What do people think of me? Am I good enough? Am I doing the right job? Everyone's staring at me. Anyone else feel like this sometimes? Is it just me? And there's loads of us if we're honest. But you know what? If we go back to the desert, there they are. God's saying, I'm going to do a new thing. And they're in a place of uncertainty. They're in a place of anxiety. But at the start of the passage of Isaiah 53, God is like a love letter. He's saying, but I created you. I formed you. You are precious and honoured in my sight. I love you. You see, to beat anxiety, you need to learn to accept uncertainty. What do I need to let go of in order to be something different? I need to let go of the clock because I want God to do it on my timing. Now, just so I can suss out what type of church you are, you know I'm talking about honesty over silence, right? So I'm going to ask you a question now, and I want every single one of you to be 100% honest with me. We are in church, God knows. Okay, are you up for this? Some of you don't seem that sure. What's going on? I don't want to be honest. What do you think I am, church? Here it is. It won't apply to anyone here, but it will apply to some of you. I want you to put your hand in the air if you've ever been on a speed awareness course. Oh my goodness, just look around, ladies and gentlemen. That is a lot of people. What is wrong with you hackney people? My goodness. Well, Kevin's just making sure he's not on his own. Look, what's going on? And so just keep your hand in the air, really high. I'm going to pray for you, it's okay. My goodness. Keep your hand in the air if you've been on a speed awareness course twice. Oh my goodness. We've got 2 people here already. 3 times? No. So the pastor is the only one that's been on the speed awareness course twice. Is that what we're saying? Oh, there's someone else over here as well. You did that twice. The 2 leaders have been on the speed awareness course twice. We need to pray for these guys. What is going on? Does that say something about how hard they're working? I don't know. And, well, my friend is a vicar. And he'd also been on the speed awareness course, and I may have been on one myself. And you'll know, because most of you have been on the speed awareness course here, that what you do at the start of the speed awareness course is you get together and you talk about why you were speeding. And my mate's a vicar, and he's like, I can't really lie. So it got to the first person. First person was like, well, my wife was in hospital having a baby and I didn't want to miss the birth. Blatant lie, don't you think? That's got to be a lie, right? The second one is why I'm a man, part of a trustee board, and I just had to get there on time. And they came to my mate, and he's like, I can't lie, I'm a vicar. So he went, you know the sat nav, right? No, yeah. You know it predicts the time that you're going to get somewhere? Yeah. I want to beat that sucker every single time. There we go. Fantastic. We'll pray later. But you know what? Joseph waited 13 years. Abraham waited 25 years. Moses waited 40 years. Jesus waited 30 years. If God's making you wait, you're in good company. Sometimes you need to let go of the clock. But the big thing for me, actually, was I had to let go of shame. Because shame and guilt are two very different things. Shame and guilt. Guilt says I've done something wrong. Shame says I am wrong. You know, sometimes we feel so ashamed, don't we? I was speaking at Spring Harvest. You heard of a thing called Spring Harvest? It's a big festival thing. There were about 3,500 people there on the last night. And I was like the last night speaker, so there's a bit of pressure on, you know. And I stood in front of 3,500 people and I said, you know what, I have never heard anyone on a stage this size at Spring Harvest talk about mental health in the current. I've heard people say 20 years ago when I struggled with mental health. I've never heard anyone talk about it in the current. And to say it now, I'm struggling with anxiety now. So I went, you know what? There's always a first time. You can hear a pin drop. Oh my goodness, what's wrong with this guy? Because we've got to be honest, right? We've got to let go of shame. And Brené Brown very famously says this: shame has two voices. Who do you think you are, and you're not enough? Who can relate to those two voices? Who do you think you are, and you're not enough? You see, the difference that people, when they've got a physical problem and a mental problem, is so different. Here, look at the difference here. That if you have a mental health problem, if you're a physical problem, the sufferer gets cared for. The sufferer is told they're going to be supported through it. The sufferer is told, if you need anything, the sufferer is told, you are strong and courageous. The sufferer is told it can happen to anyone. Isn't it the opposite sometimes when someone's struggling with their mental health? But just the way that none of us have positive, total wonderful physical health, it's very hard to have wonderful emotional and mental health, exactly in the same way. You see, some disabilities look like this, and some others look like this. So the question is, what do I need to let go of in order to be? Maybe I need to let go of the shame. Maybe I need to let go of those two voices that say, who do you think you are, and you're not enough. The last one I'm going to talk about, letting go of pain. Now this is a tough one because we deal with pain in three ways. I've worked with young people particularly, but with people in communities for years and years. And the three ways we deal with pain is we avoid it, we deny it's happening, or we get angry. I don't know how many times you've heard loads of sermons on anger. You guys are probably quite good at this, but I've been in church all my life and never heard a decent sermon on anger ever, apart from Jesus gets mad at the temple. But you know, anger actually is an emotional response to pain. It's a really natural reaction to something that is wrong. There's a real sense of injustice. So anger itself isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's a very helpful thing because it tells you that something's wrong. But it says in Ecclesiastes, anger resides in the lap of fools. In other words, don't let anger move in and become a resident. That's the way I tend to look at it. Ephesians 4 verse 26 says, in your anger do not sin. And you know what an antidote to anger is? It's forgiveness. Forgiveness, though, doesn't mean what that person did doesn't matter. Forgiveness doesn't mean you've got to be best friends again. Thank goodness. But you know what? The hardest thing is to forgive someone who hasn't said sorry. Is that true? Because you want it to change. You want them to know the hurt and the pain that they've caused you. But you know, we can't always change the past, but it doesn't have to define us. You see, in the desert, God produces real people. He shapes them, He moulds them, He speaks hope over them. My mum's quite an inspiration to me in this area. My mum grew up in an incredibly violent home. Her dad used to beat her and used to beat my nan quite badly. And she used to wake up and she used to come downstairs and my nan would have been taking a beating. And they were really, really poor. He used to nick stuff. He was in and out of prison the whole time. He was angry. He went 0 to 60 in seconds. You know, that type. I've never dealt with anything, and some days my mum said they'll be at the dinner table, because they were poor, all they had was pasta and chips, and he'd get the plate and he'd just chuck it up against the wall, and it would smash, and the sort of chips or the pasta would sort of fall to the floor, you know. And her and her brother, my uncle, used to go and pick it up and eat it, because they were so poor. And it was just the most horrendous situation. She was abused in every single way possible. And eventually he left, and they got a restraining order on him. But that just basically put the family into poverty even more, and her whole identity had been wrapped up in this guy, because she said one day he got my nan by the neck and shoved her against the wall. And he basically, my nan said to him, "Go on then, do it, do it." And my mum was watching that, right? And she's like, "What if he does it? What about me, Mum? What about me, Dad?" And so she had this whole sense of something is not right. And so we didn't hear from this guy for 27 years. And my dad was praying one day, and that was somehow that God would bring some reconciliation, something into this situation. And within a day, this guy rings up, and he says, "I've had a stroke, I'm not doing so well, I'd like to meet up." I remember the day as if it was yesterday. We went up to Cambridge where he was living. I went, my nan went, my sister went. We'd never seen this guy before. My uncles went. And to say that it was one of those days that was tense is a bit of an understatement. It isn't one of those Christian stories that he'd now come to know God and everything was great and we all loved each other and we saw each other every weekend from that on. It wasn't one of those stories, I'm afraid. But at the end, my dad said, "You know, we are Christians. Would you mind if we prayed?" So we did that weird thing that Christians do. We stood in a circle and we held hands. And I remember looking at my mum, and my mum was just like staring at her dad. And I guess in her eyes I could just see all the pain, all the hurt, all the anger, all the frustration, all the abuse, all the stuff that she'd been through. And then, as my dad said amen, she walked across the circle, she grabbed her dad and said, "Dad, I forgive you. I forgive you." And then this angry man, who she'd only ever seen shout, cried for the first time that she'd ever seen him cry. And I had a medal around my neck. I used to be really good at football before I had all my health problems, and I'd been to Germany and I'd won Player of the Week or something. And for some reason I felt God say, "Give me your medal." And I went, "No, I don't want to give you a medal." And he's like, "Give me a medal." "No, give me a medal. I don't like him. He gives my mum, man. You know, it's like, I'm going to smash his face in." And so I had this little conversation with God for a little bit, and in the end I just took it off. I had it around my neck. It's a little bit sad, but I did. And I just slapped it in his hand and went, "Granddad, I think God wants you to have this." And I walked off. And of course, he just was completely undone, because actually what happened is he fought in World War II. He'd experienced trauma and stuff that had never been processed, like many of the soldiers had. He'd never dealt with that stuff going on. And the only thing that he associated with being anything of worth was medals. You know, sometimes we've got to help God, we've got to help ourselves let go. You see, it's difficult, isn't it? Because, you know what, we can't control what everything happens to us. But we do have a choice in how we respond. The choice is down to us. Some of us need to let go of perfectionism. Let go of catastrophic thinking. Who always thinks the worst? I always do that. It's like, oh my goodness, I take one thing, you know, me and my wife have a little argument. I went, "That's it, it's the end of the marriage." Right, seriously, I'll make you another cup of coffee, it's fine. But you know what? It's sometimes we can just take it to the end. We've got to let go of that rigid thinking. Oh my goodness, I should, I must, I ought. Who says that? I must be okay. I should be alright by now. I ought to be okay. I should, I must, I ought. How many times do we say that in the average day? Some of us need to let go of the wrong view of God. We think God's angry with us all the time. You know, it's interesting, I've got a little girl, Abigail, who's got some challenges with her eyesight, and she falls over quite a lot. And when she comes running up to me, she's fallen over, she's cut her knee, and she goes, "Dad," she's crying, "I've fallen over again. Does she need me to go?" "Abigail, you idiot. There was a massive rock, you just tripped over it. What is your problem?" What do you want me to do? She doesn't want me to say anything. She just wants me to hold her until she stops crying. You know, when we're going through a tough time, I think God just wants to hold you till you stop crying. That's the sort of God I believe in. We've got to let go of the inner critic. Who's your biggest critic in your life? I'll tell you who mine is. Me. Beat myself up. I can do stuff. I do a lot of talking, right? And then at the end, people come up and talk to me. I love talking to them. I'm a people person. And then occasionally, some Christian will come up to me and go, "I just want to tell you something in love." As soon as a Christian says that, you need to run. Right? Get out of there, right? So what the thing is, guess what I'm going to be thinking about that night in bed? Am I going to think about all the lovely people that I met? Or am I going to think about the annoying person that came up to me and told me something in love? We need to learn to let go. The question is this, is what I'm going to let go of in order to what I'm going to give myself to. I'm going to show you a little video, make a couple more comments, and then I'm done. Check this out.
One day, a university professor holding a bottle of water, he asked his students how much they think this bottle of water weighs. 500 grams shouted one student, another from the back shouted 600 grams. The professor looked at them and said, actually, until we weigh the bottle, we wouldn't know. And then he said, imagine I hold this bottle for a few minutes. What do you think will happen? One of the students shouted, nothing. He said, what if I hold it for a bit longer? Let's say I hold this bottle for, let's say, a few hours. And they said, well, your arm will start to hurt. And he said, what if I held this bottle for 24 hours? And one of the students said, your arm would practically be paralyzed or in extreme pain. The professor then said, notice that the weight of the bottle didn't change during that time at all. The only thing that changed was how long you were holding it. And his lesson to his students from this situation was that this bottle represents our challenges, our problems, our worries, our anxieties about uncertainty, that the longer that we hold them, the more pain they can do to us. One of the most moving and powerful quotes I've ever heard is from Nelson Mandela, where he said that when I was walking out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew that if I didn't leave behind my bitterness and hatred, I'd still be in prison. We pollute our consciousness when we allow envy and anger to enter the inner cores of our minds, bringing in negativity, injecting anxiety and uncertainty into the way we think. And that's why Mahatma Gandhi said, I'll never let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. But often we see that it's our own very shoes that are causing the dirt. Forgiveness and letting go and the ability to rise above the challenges that have been caused by others in our life is such an important ability, because we need to learn to accept apologies that we never received. I believe that you can't fix yourself by breaking someone else. It's like what Buddha said, resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. When we recognize that actually by holding any negative feelings towards another individual simply only harms the way we think, that's when we'll truly be able to forgive, move on and let go, and realize that that internal healing is what lets us take care of the external circumstances. And this is not easy at all, because we've all been caused pain, sometimes to extreme lengths. Sometimes our hearts have been broken, sometimes our trust has been misused, sometimes we've been exploited, sometimes our loyalty has been tested. And that's why forgiveness doesn't excuse the behavior, but it prevents the behavior from negatively affecting us. And our ego wants us to put others in their place, but we should try to put ourselves in their place.
So the question is what do we need to let go of in order to be something different? I guess most of my focus of my life has been, God, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? I mean, I'm really blessed. I'm so blessed. I've been to 42 different countries. I've been to some of the poorest places on earth. I've got to speak in some of the most unusual places on earth. I've met some of the most amazing people. But you know what I realise now? Is that God is more interested in what I'm becoming than what I'm going to do. He's more interested in who I am as a person. So what I did is when I started looking at all these things that I needed to let go of, the second 6 chapters, which I'm not going to speak on, this is sort of part 2 of this talk, was about being. I realised I had to let go in order to be in community, to be loved, to be still, to be authentic, to be hopeful. You see, I was sitting down with one of my publishers the other day, and he was saying, you know, what do you think the key thing, the next thing for you is? I said, if I write a new book, I'm going to call it, I want to be a decent human being. Because I've met lots of famous people, and they're just rude. They're just annoying. You know, kindness is quite attractive, right? It's quite attractive about someone who's kind, who treats you with respect and dignity. I met some of the most famous Christians in the world, and you know, some of them are amazing, but some of them are rude. And you know, God is doing something different. Philip Yancey says that if he could rename the Bible, he'd rename it this: God gets his family back. God gets his family back. Because right throughout the Bible it's, I will be their God, and they will be my people. If we can be anything, we've got to be authentic. I was reading my little girl Abby a story last, well, I read it quite a lot. It's called Grass Can't Dance. I don't know if you've heard of it. And Abby, she has 40% vision. She has a condition called nystagmus. She can't see very well, and she's sort of on the autistic spectrum. She doesn't fit, like many kids with autism, into a box, which makes getting help for her very complicated. And so we was reading, my wife actually was reading this story, and the story tells a story about Gerard the giraffe. And basically all the other animals in the jungle are taking the mickey out of Gerard because he can't dance. He's useless. He just can't do it. And so he's feeling really depressed. And he's going back, and on the way back to where he was going, he comes across a cricket, as you do. And the cricket says to him, "What's so wrong?" He goes, "Well, I just can't dance." And the cricket, as crickets do, they get out a violin. And he starts to play, and he goes, "You know, the problem is you just got to learn to dance to a different tune." And he starts to play, and Gerard starts to dance. And he starts to get really free. And in fact, his passion is contagious. And everyone's looking at Gerard being the best dancer in the jungle. Diane closes the book. Abigail looks up to her and she goes, "Mummy, that book's about me." "What do you mean, darling?" "I can do all things, I just have to do them really differently." That's what being authentic is all about being yourself. And so anyway, to finish, Kintsugi Hope, we came up with a little bit of an idea. I decided one of the things I needed to do is let go of a charity that I'd run for 22 years and built it up to sort of 75 staff, £2 million budget. It's quite big, works all over London. And I felt like God said it's time to let go. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And I really felt that God was calling us to do something else, that it's been laying on my heart. And so me and my wife, we prayed, because giving up the CEO salary is quite a lot. And starting again is quite risky when you've got 4 kids and a mortgage. And we came across this idea at Kintsugi Hope that we'd start a charity that was working with people, Christians, non-Christians, people of different faiths, to help them in their journey in emotional and mental health. And so what we thought, the AA course, Alcoholics Anonymous, we thought, wouldn't it be really interesting if we wrote a course that was 12 weeks long that could do exactly the same thing but around emotional and mental health? And we really wanted to do 4 things. We wanted to create a way that people could have a safe and supportive space. We wanted to create a way that people could self-manage, self-management tools, peer support, signpost to specialist help if they need it. And these were all the topics we thought we were going to look at. So me and my wife, we've been writing this course in learning styles, because I'm a bit bored of the sort of buy something off the shelf and just deliver it. So we've written it in 7 different learning styles. See it, hear it, watch it, create it. So it's quite creative. And we thought, well, how can we do this? So we then thought, I know this is really simple, so it's not that challenging in that sense. Why don't we say to every small group we know, every Christian small group, why don't you run this for 12 weeks? And why don't you invite people you know who are really broken? And tell them about Kintsugi, because it's a really cool thing to tell people about. Oh my goodness, all the mums at the school gate were like, "I'll come, my husband's just left. I'll come, I'm in debt." There's one woman in our kitchen who went, "I'm an alcoholic." And I have to come. There you go. So our small group trebled in size overnight, all with people from our community, all from people who probably wouldn't come to church on a Sunday morning. And suddenly I'm sitting there watching people build a relationship. There's a lady in my church, she's one of those ladies who's been to every service for the last 80 years, she's just lovely. She's sitting next to someone from my community who I know has gone through a really, really, really tough time. Has been hospitalised twice in the last year. And they're getting on like a house on fire. I'm thinking, I'm loving this. I sat next to a guy who I've known all my life, and Diane got us to talk about a high point and a low point in your life. I learned more in 5 minutes talking to this guy than I've learned in the first 40 years of being in church with this guy. I never realised some of the stuff that people go through. And so we really are praying that Kintsugi Hope would start a movement and not a charity. That what we're going to do is we're going to train churches up. They're going to come to us for 2 days. We're going to train them up to deliver this course in the community. Wouldn't that be exciting? The famous theologian Winnie the Pooh said this: "Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Just walk beside me and be my friend." I like that. Yeah. You know what? I said to God, if the next big move of your spirit comes in some big warehouse in America somewhere where God TV come along and they film it and they stick it out every night, I'm out, I'm gone. But you know, I'd love to think that maybe the next move of God would come in small groups. Because what we're saying to these small groups is, once you've done it, why don't you go and run it in your business? Why don't you go and run it in a hospital, coffee shops? I'm going to run one in the Royal Legion. How fun is that? We've got one starting in a homeless hostel. We've got prisons across the country saying we would love to run this. We've got schools saying we would love to run this. Wouldn't it be amazing that if the next big move of God isn't led by some famous Christian, but is led by the broken and the marginalised and those that feel fragile and those that feel have courage and vulnerability, that just want to be with people. I love this quote. It says this: being with is not fundamentally about finding solutions. It's about companionship amidst the struggle and distress. Sometimes the obsession with finding solutions can get in the way of forming profound relationships. And sometimes those relationships are more significant than the solutions. One of my favourite Bible verses, Song of Songs, verse 8, verse 5. Who's that coming out of the desert, leaning on their lover? You've got to lean on someone, you've got to trust them. You know, people came out of the desert, authentic people. So I'm now going to give you the 60-second trailer of what I've just done. So you can get everything I've just said in 60 seconds, right? It's a bit of a challenge. This is the sort of thing I teach communicators to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe everything I've done in 60 seconds, and hopefully I'm going to get there. So if you hadn't come today and you were watching a trailer on the telly about what the talk's going to be, this is roughly what it would be. Don't do that. Are you ready? I'm going to do it 30 seconds now. God is doing something new. We can't stay in the past, no matter how good or how bad it is. Kintsugi is about beauty in brokenness, discovering treasure like scars. We need to let go of the false smile, anxiety, shame, perfectionism and pain. Anxiety is caring too much. Shame is who you think you are and you're not enough. Be authentic, be with one another. Let go of the pretense and be real. How many seconds was that?
That's definitely less than 60.
The fact is, in a sentence, let go of the pretense. Let's be authentic. That's my story. During starting Kintsugi Home, I have just met the most wonderful, wonderful people. This lady, I'm going to finish by reading her poem. Her name's Jane Smith, and I speak quite a lot, and she was always gutted that she could never get out and hear me speak, because she's got blood cancer, and she's very, very, very weak. And but she sends me poems, and she types them up on an old-fashioned typewriter, right? You know that old-fashioned typewriter, it's so cute. And the other day, I was speaking in Peckham, and she managed to get a taxi, and she was well enough to come and hear me speak. And she gave me this poem, and I'm going to read it to you now. It says this: acceptance in the anguish, beauty in the bruises, belief in the brokenness, breakthrough in the battle, comfort in the conflict, contentment in the confusion, courage in the crisis, determination in the distress, diamonds in the dust, dignity in the disappointment, direction in the difficulty, discovery in the darkness, faith in the fear, fortitude in the frustration, grace in the grief, healing in the horror, hope in the hurt, insight in the injury, inspiration in the illness, and jewels in the journey. My PA, 6 months ago, sent me this word. I think I'm going to teach it to you now, alright? I didn't think this word was a true word. I thought she was speaking in tongues, or she just made something up. She's French as well. I thought she's just French. And the word is flawsome. Now, flawsome means an individual who embraces their flaws and knows they're awesome regardless. It's in the English dictionary! How cool is that? You are totally flawsome. You're flawsome. I quite like you guys though, you're all smiling at me. That's much nicer. At the start you were looking quite scary, I'm not going to lie. You're flawsome. You're incredible. With all your flaws, with all your scars and all that stuff. There is beauty in brokenness, discovering treasure in life's scars. But I want to challenge you as well. What do you need to let go of in order to be? Don't get stuck holding on to something that you don't need to. And you know, I do this every day. It's not a decision that's easy. I'll just let go and that's it. You do it every day, but you do it in order to be more real. And I think that's what our community needs at the moment. I'm going to pray, and thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here with you guys. today. Why don't we stand if you're able? One of the worship guys, why don't you come back? That would be amazing.